Well, good afternoon, good evening. My name is William Lawson, and this is Fight Back 2020. Something that I've been wanting to talk about, and that actually been talking about for a long time with a lot of people, is about it's election time, but it's also a time where on the ballot there are going to be what they call ballot initiatives, and these are some of them. I think there's only four of them that are voter initiated ballots where people get a thing and put it on, and get a petition and get so many signatures and it gets put on the ballot. We saw that with the medical marijuana. We've seen that with the restoring felons' rights. And the problem is, it's a lot of times my personal opinion. Before I talk about the ballot initiatives that are on the ballot this time in the state of Florida, in my mind, it's always putting the cart before the horse. And then we get frustrated when it doesn't work very well. It was 2 or 3 years, maybe longer, before miracle marijuana was available in the state of Florida. Now, well, most medical marijuana was available. There was some already available beforehand, but it took forever. Well, because the deception, and there is deception, the deception is that whatever is on the ballot here is what people think is going to be the law. And that's never the case. And it's never going to be the case. It's just the idea. No matter how long, some of these things read forever. They read like epistles about what people are trying to do. But that's never the law. The law has to be written by the legislature. And it still has to be passed and signed by the governor. So it's putting the cart before the horse, really. An idea is to circumvent the legislature. Because for one reason or another, you couldn't get enough traction from the legislature to get done what you wanted to get done. So this is a way to circumvent it. So in general, now we're going to talk about these amendments, but to the Florida State Constitution, we're going to talk about them individually. But in general, my idea is say no to everything. Because it just causes problems. It's not the way to do it. It's just not the way to do it. The idea is that you get your state legislature or state legislator to bring these things up. Put them in committee. Write the bills. Have public debate. The whole idea of having a representative form of government and not mob rule. That's how you do it. This idea that suddenly it's now part of the state constitution because you got 60% of the people to say so. Not the way to run the state, in my opinion. All right, let's go ahead and dig in. Now, I know a lot of people disagree with me, but boy, that's been my life lately, hasn't it? Have you seen that around here? Excuse me, let me move the camera a little bit. I feel better now. And I'm wearing my brand new Stanley Cup shirt. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Their second Stanley Cup. It's every bit as good as the first one, right? Let's talk about Amendment 1. Amendment 1, the description is as follows. It states in the state constitution there are only U.S. citizens who are 18 or older that can vote in federal, state, local, or school elections. Now, why is this here? That seems like common sense, right? Because some states around the country are allowing illegal aliens to vote in these local elections. There are some municipalities that are allowing students or people who are as young as 16 to vote in these elections. And I know this is a preemptive strike to keep that from happening here in the state of Florida. I understand that. And what bothers me greatly is that you can't get somebody in the state legislature to write this bill and do this the right way. What? Doesn't make any sense. And worse than that, there's 8 billion, $8.2 billion in funds to support this particular amendment. And there's $0 in opposition to it. Zero. So it seems like it would have done well in the Florida, in the Florida legislature. How come we couldn't get one state senator or one state representative to bring up this bill in a natural way? And there's a couple of more that I think that the very same thing. So do I think that? Well, we'll go back through. Amendment 2 increases the state minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026, in 6 years. Now, there'll be a gradual increase. And a lot of places are doing this. A lot of the states are doing this. A lot of municipalities are doing this. And they're all really facing the same sort of argument that you face here. What you face here is this. When you're trying to get the big box stores, and that's what this amendment's doing, trying to get the big guy, you're trying to get the McDonald's and the Wendy's and the Best Buy, and you end up getting everybody else. It ends up being lots of collateral damage, in my opinion. You end up getting a lot of privately owned mom and pop businesses that simply can't do it. They cannot do it. They can't. And they can't compete as the larger stores and larger entities are able to absorb that cost. Who would go work at mom and pop if they could make sure that they get $15 an hour or more money at big box? So not only can't they have trouble competing in a retail environment or a service environment against a larger entity, they have trouble getting employees. It kills small businesses. Kills them. And it's really not good for all the employees. It's not good for all workers. Because business people aren't stupid. If they got to pay people $15 an hour, then they're going to do one or both of these things. They're going to fire people and have fewer people, and or have people work less hours. You could do that. You could do that arithmetic, and you don't need a supercomputer to figure out the arithmetic, how to keep your costs the same, how to keep your labor costs the same. So instead of you're having 5 people working full-time, 40 hours a week, you may have a few more people working at less than half-time. Again, the balance comes with employee taxes and insurance, that kind of stuff. So, but what we found is that it actually costs jobs. It actually costs jobs. And the idea that you could, if it benefits you early, you'll be put in a higher tax bracket, and the money that you thought you were going to get, you're going to give up to either to the state or to the federal government in property tax or in income taxes. Anytime we have tried to artificially inflate salaries, it's been a disaster. It's been a nightmare. It's Amendment 2. Now, let's talk about its support. $4 million. Should I get this right? Yes. $4 million in support. 4.9, almost $5 million in support of this bill. Should just divide that money up and give it to the employers around the state. It's like $1 a piece. And only $407,000 in opposition. A lot of big money behind this amendment. Big money. $5 million worth. As opposed to less than $500,000 opposing it. Crazy, man. crazy. All right. Amendment 3, elections. This is important. Establishes a top 2 primary system for state office primary elections. So it invokes open primaries. So you have a number of candidates. People vote. The top 2, even if they're from the same party, are in the general election. Well, and this is happening other places, and you know why there are people. And I'm going to read you the support for this. You know why? Because so far in Florida, for a while, Republicans have owned the Senate and owned the House. And this is a way that the left thinks that they can win. It's funny. It's always so short-sighted. It could really work the other way. You could have 2 Republicans at the top of the primary as well. But they're desperate. They don't have, my opinion, they don't have ideas. They have not been able to crack the egg that is Florida. So what they'll do is they'll destroy it instead. Now, how much money? Because follow the money, baby. Amendment 3. Open primary. $6.2 million in support of this amendment. $0 in opposition. $6.2 million support the open primary initiative. $0 in opposition. What's that tell you? Speaks a lot, right? All right, we're going to take a little break, and we will get back with Amendments 4, 5, and 6 right after this message.
This is Tim Bryce with my column titled, The Secret of the News Media. Regardless of your party affiliation, everyone seems to be on edge regarding the upcoming November elections. When you add on top of this the concern over the COVID-19 virus and the violence and looting in our cities, the country is getting worn out, depressed, and frankly, very angry. This is all by design, as the news media knows how to pull the strings of the people. Let me preface my remarks by describing my participation in the 2016 election when I followed the press corps to several Trump rallies in my state. One of the first things I learned was how immoral these people were and how they gladly sacrificed honest reporting for the almighty dollar. Ever since the United States went to a 24/7 news cycle in 1980, the reporting of news media has been manipulated by executives for competitive purposes. And this goes for all media outlets, be it television, newspaper, radio, magazine, and so on. Fewer and fewer reporters are allowed to produce honest copy. Most must follow the guidelines as prescribed by their bosses. To illustrate, before all of the Trump rallies I attended, those members of the press who produced written copy had finished their work prior to Mr. Trump taking the podium. The next day I would read their copy and realize it had nothing whatsoever to do with what was actually said during the rally, making the reporting completely fallacious and nonsensical. It was just plain wrong. It was at this time I learned the news media was in the business of making money, big money. Naively, I had believed reporters tried to report fairly and accurately, but this is simply not so. To make money, they have to create an audience following, and there is nothing better than to create intrigue a la sensationalism. Let me give you an example. If the press reported an incumbent will likely win re-election and the challenger will be easily defeated, there would be no intrigue and consequently no audience interest and no income. However, if it is reported the underdog will likely upset the incumbent, then the press creates intrigue, resulting in a bigger audience and makes more money on advertising, regardless if it is true or not. Not surprising, all of the news media is in on this, be it CNN, MSNBC, Fox, NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and just about everyone else. Creating intrigue results in big bucks. It is therefore in their best interest to do so, and to hell with honesty and accuracy. It just gets in the way. Hence the proliferation of fake news. Closely related to this are the polls, which are also geared to creating intrigue. Again, they will have little to sell if the incumbent is winning. Not surprising, no two polls follow precisely the same criteria and input gathering techniques, such as the people to be selected to be interviewed. As such, they produce different results, which is why I refer to them as mixing apples with oranges. Let us also not forget Secretary Hillary Clinton possessed a double-digit lead going into the election. The same phenomenon is happening again. This explains why the political parties and campaigns do their own polling. In other words, they recognize the major polls are flawed and useless, which is why they rely on their own polling people. The point is, anyone who has complete faith in the political polls is a sucker and should avoid Aqueduct. So who should John Q. Public trust for news and polling? Nobody but themselves. I would suggest you watch current events, speeches, and other live events on television. Thank God for C-SPAN. And leave the spin behind you. You may also want to look up voting results through your local board of elections, which is what I do. Just remember, the news media's business is not honest journalism. It's about making a buck. And to do so, they have to play the public as sheep. Sorry, but it is true. So, for you nervous Nellies out there, take a chill pill and relax. If you are really concerned with the outcome of the November elections, report for campaign duty. Otherwise, just turn off the network news and do your homework. Therefore, the lesson today is simple. Do not trust half of what you read. Then again, maybe you want to make it 75%. Friends, keep the faith. It's Tim Bryce in Palm Harbor, Florida. Follow me on the internet at timbryce.com.
All right, wasn't that great? Isn't Paul great? You can hear Paul on the Morning Report on a regular basis. The Morning Report is on Spreaker and on the Fightback Media website and Spotify and iHeartRadio. Everywhere you get your podcast, you can hear the Morning Report. And Paul is on the Morning Report. So you want to, Paul and Tim Bryce. So Tim is fantastic. All right, we're going to go to amendment number 4. This one, even the description is kind of confusing, and a lot of these are kind of confusing. It requires voter-approved constitutional amendments to be approved by the voters at a second general election. So once they get on the ballot and get approved this way, they have to be put before the public again. You could have just done it right the first time. You could have gone through the legislative process the first time, in my opinion. But that's what that's about. And for that one, that's number 4, $9 million in support for it. 0 support in opposition. What do you think? And number 5. Let's even combine number 5 and number 6. Number 5 states is the extend the Save Our Homes portability period amendment. Now, normally, if you've got a home and you're on the Save Our Homes with this homestead exemption, you have 2 years to transfer that to the new house. This amendment wants to add a year to that for 3 years. Number 6 is the homestead property tax discount for spouses of deceased veterans. Seems like a reasonable thing. It's got a lot of, and none of those have any money support for or against. Now, again, my idea is to vote no on all these amendments because I don't think it's the way to run government. I think this whole idea just that circumvents the legislative process also circumvents your vote. We vote for these people to do this kind of work for us. and then we have this process that circumvents them entirely. Seems counterproductive to me. So I personally am going to vote no on all of them. Now, when we get back, I'm going to give you the what the Libertarian Party of Hillsborough County says you ought to do. Now, you will do whatever you want, but I'm going to give you a second opinion. We'll be right back.
This is Tim Bryce with my column entitled Politicians. Are we asking the right questions? I've been making the rounds through local political meetings lately and have met a lot of candidates for the November elections. Everything from congressman to senator to county commissioner to school board representative to dog catcher. There's a lot of new faces running for office, probably because they realize the citizens are fed up with the status quo. Interestingly, I notice a lot of the new faces are not much better than the old faces. I don't care what party you're in, there's a certain level of smarminess associated with a politician running for office. Maybe it's because the candidate is trying to appease everyone. You have to smile a lot, shake a lot of hands, and be a jolly Wally. I don't take these types of politicians seriously, and I tend to wash my hands afterwards. They're just plain smarmy, if you ask me. I'm generally disappointed in the types of questions we ask candidates. People tend to ask about their position of the catastrophe du jour. I tend to believe it's rather easy to answer such a question in retrospect. It's a lot harder to get them to give their opinion on what they would do in a future calamity. You tend to get vague generalities in this situation. I don't believe we're asking the candidates the right questions. As for me, I see this as an interview for a job, which it is. Consequently, we should ask questions about their skills, experience, and why they believe they are qualified for the job. For example, here are the typical questions I like to ask politicians. What is the biggest job you've ever had? How many people have reported to you? What kind of performance reviews have you had? How do you accept criticism? What is the biggest decision you have had to make in your professional career? How did you come to your decision? What was the largest project you worked on in terms of money and people? What was your specific role in the project, and what was the outcome? Was it successful or failure? How do you prepare a feasibility study? What steps do you go through? What business skills do you possess, such as speaking, writing, negotiations, cost-benefit analysis, return on investment, and so on? Again, if this sounds like a job interview, it is. In a republic, the masses elect people to serve office and in the process make their own decisions. Although they should listen to their constituents, they are not bound to follow popular opinion, which would be a pure democracy. I therefore want to know if the candidate knows how to make a rational decision and has the proper character for the job. I would much rather know the answer to these questions than the latest public relations spin. We need more government officials with character than we need smarminess. Friends, keep the faith. It's Tim Bryce in Palm Harbor, Florida. Follow me on the internet at timbryce.com.
Well, like I said, I don't really think that we should vote for any of them. I think that it's a ridiculous way to run a state. It's a ridiculous way to do that. To purposely circumvent your own legislative branch seems silly to me. However, if you're going to, if you're used to voting for and against these amendments, then at least you can do it in a libertarian way. The Libertarian Party of Florida, of Hillsborough County, suggests that you vote yes on Amendment 1, which is guaranteeing that everybody has to be a citizen and 18 years old to vote in a federal, state, or local election and school board election here in the state of Florida. And that you vote yes on 5 and 6. 5 and 6 is the Homestead Portability Act, making sure that somebody can move that exemption to a new property, and if it takes 3 years, it takes 3 years instead of now the deadline being 2 years, and allowing a home exemption discount to the spouses of dead veterans. So vote yes on 1. And yes on 5 and 6. No on 2, job-killing minimum wage. No on 3, open primary, Operation Chaos. No on 4, the whole going back and voting on the idea that gets pushed by petition, and if it gets on the ballot and gets approved on the ballot with 60% of the vote, that whenever the law is written, that has to go back before the voters in a in a general election. So the idea it opens the idea is that we ought to vote on every single law. That's not what we hire them for. It's cumbersome and ridiculous. So I voted no. Like, again, I'm going to vote no on all of them because I don't think it's the way to run the state. I've given you an alternative on what to do, and then you can make your own decision. My name is Willie Lawson. This is Fight Back 2020, a production of fightbackmedia.com. You can reach us on the web at fightbackmedia.com. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sake, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.